Hey, this is Russell. Welcome back to mission number 2. Today, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to build out your Dream 100. And this is where we start having some fun. I'm excited for this. So Dream 100, I'll tell you some of the backstory behind this. So one of my friends, his name is Chet Holmes. He wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine. Hopefully some of you guys have read it. It's one of my top 10 favorite business books of all time. Chet passed away a couple years ago, and before he did, I had a chance to work with him on a whole bunch of really cool projects. One with him and Tony Robbins, which was really fun, and a couple other things. But of everything I learned from Chet, I learned a lot of good things. The number one thing I learned from him is this concept called the Dream 100. Now, Chet did the Dream 100 different than I did. So I'm going to explain kind of the way that he did it, and then after that, I'm going to show you the way that I do it and how you're going to be able to leverage this to get as much traffic as you want into all of your funnels, okay? So the way Chet did it is at the time, Chet worked for Charlie Munger, who's a billionaire with a B, and Chet was running a division. So here's Chet right here. Chet was also like a karate dude, so maybe we'll put like a karate belt on him. All right. So Chet was working with Charlie Munger, and they had a magazine, right? And the magazine, inside the magazine, as you know, the way you make money is you sell ads. So there's your ad. And I think there was like, I don't know, there was like 10 different magazines in the industry, and they were at the time like the bottom of the rung. They were the worst at, they were making the least amount of money of all the different magazines, right? So Charlie hires Chet and says, we need you to get us from the bottom to the top. And so Chet's like, okay, how are we going to do this? And he's like, oh, I'm going to use my Dream 100 strategy. So what did he do? He went and he found, okay, from all the people up here, the top 3 that have these other magazines, he's like, who are all the people that are buying ads and these things? He said, okay, well, if you look at the people, like these guys are buying ads, these guys are buying ads, and found basically of all the different potential advertisers, like here were the Dream 100, the 100 people that spent most of the money on ads. So he took this list of all the different people's names. He said, instead of me trying to have our sales team go out there and contact millions of people to sell ads in here, he's like, I'm just going to pick the people that are spending most of the money. He said, I'm going to do an aggressive marketing campaign directly to these names. So this is Joe, who's at Chrysler. Here's Mike over at whatever. He's got all different people who spend the majority of the money in their industry. And he started marketing aggressively to just those people. He called them his Dream 100, right? And so he started doing that, and the first 6 months he was like, he'd send him a package in the mail, then he'd call him on the phone 2 weeks later, then send him something in the mail, call him on the phone, and just aggressively marketing to him. And what happened, he said after the first 6 months, nothing happened. He didn't get anybody. And he said after like 7 months, then 8 months, they got like the first guy started buying ads in his thing. And they got the second guy, and then the third guy, and the fourth guy, and eventually within like a year and a half, the magazine that Chet was working for went from being the bottom one all the way to being the top. Okay, and that was Dream 100, and that was basically him doing it one-to-one, right? He's trying to get one client at a time, and that's how Chet built up that magazine. Then Chet did the same thing later in his life. He wrote a screenplay, and he was like, oh, I want to turn this into a movie. And he's like, how do I do that? And so he didn't know Hollywood, didn't know anybody in Hollywood. So what he did with his screenplay is like, okay, well, who's my Dream 100? Who's the 100 people that could actually make this true? And he's like, okay, well, here's the producer, here's an actor, here's a person, and like built out a Dream 100 list of all the potential people who could take his screenplay and make it a reality. Okay, so he took all those people, and then he went back through and said, okay, I'm gonna do a Dream 100 campaign to these people. So he sent the screenplay to all 100 of them. Then he called them on the phone. Then he sent them another gift in the mail. Then called them on the phone, and kept doing that aggressively until one of these people said, hey, this screenplay is actually awesome, and ended up taking it and turning it into a movie and a whole bunch of other cool things, okay? So that was the Dream 100 that Chet explained to me. I was like, this is amazing. But I was like, for me though, like, it's a little bit different. Like, I'm not trying to get like one customer to buy something from me. I'm like, I didn't want to do Dream 100, like, especially if I'm selling like a book or trying to get an opt-in, and I was like, how does this relate to me? And also one day I had this epiphany. I was like, wait a minute, what if instead of going one-to-one, what if I do one-to-many? What if I change my approach? So instead of trying to get one customer at a time, I said, what if, so now I'm going to change this from being Chet to being me, okay? So I'm going to take the karate belt off because I wasn't a karate guy. So here's me now. I'm going to put some cauliflower though because I'm a wrestler, okay? So there's me now. And I had this product. I had a book I wanted to sell, right? And so I'm like, okay, I have this book. And we talked yesterday about congregation. So I was like, instead of me trying to find who's people I can sell the book to, I'm like, who has a congregation that they're in charge of that already has 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 people on it, right? I was like, okay, well, Tony Robbins has got a following of like 1 million people. So I put him down, right? And I make a little column like 1 million people, right? And then I'm like, okay, who's number 2? I'm like, oh, well, what if we had so-and-so, right? And it could be anybody, like Dr. Phil, right? Dr. Phil, and like, he's got 2.3 million. And I started like making these lists of who are the people who own a community. So it could be an email list, could be a podcast, could be a Facebook group, could be an Instagram following, it could be, whatever, an influencer, whatever. We call them Dream 100, right? So I'm like, who are my Dream 100 that have my dream customers? Okay? So I'm not going to dream 100 someone. If I'm in the fitness industry, I'm not going to dream 100 maybe me, because I'm selling stuff to marketers. But if I'm selling like a traffic software, I'd be a perfect dream 100 partner, because I've got 1 million plus marketers who are looking for different ways to grow their company, right? And so I started building out a Dream 100 list of all the different people in my market who have my dream customers on their list. And I started like guesstimating like how, and some of them, like if you go to Facebook, you can see like, oh, this guy's got 3.2 million. But if I go to like the podcast directories, I'm like, I have no idea how many podcast listeners they have, but they're ranked number 10. So I'm like, okay, this person's ranked 10th in the podcast, so they got to have a lot of listeners, right? I'm going through and I start doing this whole thing. So I did that initially, and I've done this, by the way, for every single project I've ever done online. So if you wonder, like, Russell, how do you sell so many copies of the Expert Secrets book? Dream 100. How do you sell so many copies of the .com Secrets book? Dream 100. How did you build ClickFunnels so fast? Dream 100. Like, this is my strategy. So don't be like, oh, I got to figure out how to do, SEO and backlinking. Like, this will simplify your process. It's the Dream 100. This is the backbone of everything we do, right? So we build out our Dream 100 list, who's got our dream customers, and then we start aggressively marketing to them, okay? So like when I launched the Expert Secrets book, I sent a copy of the book in the mail, then I called them on the phone, and I sent another gift in the mail, and I called them up, and like I started aggressively marketing to these 100 people, right? So this person, all these different people, and guess what happened? Tons of them I never heard back from, but a few of them I did. So for example, just the .com Secrets book alone, I had my Dream 100 list, and I was going through and I was doing it, and my Dream 100 has gotten to about Dream 500 now. Like I have a lot of people that I do to. So I'm sending gifts in the mail, I'm calling them on the phone, we're trying to build relationships, doing all sorts of stuff. And I remember for my Dream 100, so one of the people I put on my list was JLD, so John Lee Dumas, who runs Entrepreneur on Fire podcast. He was just one of the top 10 podcasts in the directory. I never met him before, but I heard his podcast, I knew what it was. I put him on my list, I sent him a copy of the book, and like a day later, I get a message from him. He's like, dude, Brunson, guess what? I'm like, what? He's like, I read your book, this is amazing. I'm like, well, thanks, I appreciate that. He's like, okay, I'm in. I'm like, cool. So then he had me do a podcast interview with him, and then he promoted the podcast, and he ended up selling like 700 or 800 copies of this book by himself, just off somebody off my Dream 100 list, okay? So I wasn't selling one person, I sold one person who had the ability now to bring in a ton of customers, okay? So that's how the Dream 100 works, right? So you figured out this funnel we built, like who are the people who they already have those people that could potentially sell my product or my service, and we're gonna start marketing to those people, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so that's what the Dream 100 is, going one to many. So that's like the little tweak we made from the way Chet was doing it, and it's how we built our entire company, and most of our clients, how they built their companies now as well. All right, so this is what I want to kind of break out. So we talked yesterday about 3 types of traffic, right? There's traffic that you control, so you're buying your way in, buy. There's traffic you don't control, so you're earning your way in, right? And we're trying to turn that all into traffic that we own by pushing those people into our funnel, right? So now I take this and I go one step backwards and I start building out my Dream 100 list. So the way I do my Dream 100 list is I say, okay, who are all of the Facebook influencers that have my dream customers? And I say, okay, who are the Instagram influencers that have my Dream 100? Who are the YouTube celebrities that have my Dream 100? Who are the podcasts have my Dream 100? Who has email lists, right? Who are the bloggers? So I list out the different categories like that, and I say, okay, I'm gonna go on Facebook. Who are all the people? And I try to find 10 or 15 people that I can put into my Dream 100 that have big Facebook followings in the market that I'm in. Okay, and then I go to Instagram. Okay, who are the Instagram influencers that have big followings in the market that I'm in? I make a big list of those. Okay, then I do YouTube. Who are the big YouTubers? And I do the same thing for all these. Who are the podcast directors? Who are the top 10 or 20 or 50 podcasters? And I go through all these different categories, and I try to go and build out my Dream 100 from here. Okay, so worst case, you should get 10 from each of these categories. Best case, 20, 30. Some of them you might be better at. Like some of your markets are different. Like some of you guys, Pinterest is the thing, right? So if you know that Pinterest is huge in your market, like just for a lot of weight loss businesses, things like that, I'd go to Pinterest. Like who are the people that have the big, huge Pinterest boards? I'd make my Dream 100 there, right? If you are selling something that's big on Twitch, if you're selling, like I would find whatever platform you're on, it doesn't matter. And maybe you're only on 2 platforms. Maybe it's Facebook and email, or bloggers and podcasters, whatever. Like, just figure out the categories you want and start building out your Dream 100 list, okay? And that's the process. Now, that's basically gonna be your assignment for today, just FYI. So I'm gonna go a little further because I want you guys to understand the strategy behind it. But that's the biggest thing I want you guys thinking through and building that out, is building out that Dream 100 list, okay? Now, after you build out your Dream 100 list, if you come back here, again, there's two ways. You could either buy your way in, or you can work your way in. And over here, we're gonna own this traffic, okay? And if you remember this, so here's our funnel, and you've been testing all these different hooks, right? So here's your funnel where you're telling your story. We have all these little hooks that you've been creating, right? You've been testing stories, you've been testing your material, you've been doing Facebook Lives, you've been doing podcasts, you have all these different hooks that you've been testing out. So now I come back to my Dream 100 and I say, okay, first person, let's say Facebook, it's Tony Robbins. He's my #1 person. He's got 3.5 million fans. I'm like, cool, Tony's awesome. So what am I gonna do? I'm either gonna try to work my way in with Tony and build a relationship and have him interview me on his page, or I'm gonna buy my way in, okay? So everyone's gonna be different. So for Tony, I happen to know Tony. I built a relationship with him. It took me 10 years to get him, I had to work my way for 10 years to get him to go and like say, hey Russell, I'll do an interview and sell your book with you, okay? So I had to work my way, and that was a hard one to do. Some of these people, it's impossible to work your way in, or it's gonna take a long time. So it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Like I would start the relationships now and try to build relationships and buy the products and get to know them and like, whatever you can do to build the relationships. But this is the slower way a lot of times, okay? It took me 10 years with Tony Robbins. Or, because you probably do both at the same time, you can buy your way in. Okay, so I can actually go to Tony Robbins' fan page and I can buy ads to all 3.5 million people he has. So I look back here into my little tackle box of hooks I've done. I'm like, which one of my hooks have I tested that I knew that worked really? Like, people like that podcast and they like it really nailed it when I tested that material. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like that hook right there. People that love Tony Robbins would love that. So what I might do is I might go and do a Facebook Live, and then I would target just Tony Robbins' fans with that Facebook Live. So I'm gonna buy my way in and drive them into my funnel, and I'm gonna convert those from traffic that I'm controlling into traffic that I own, okay? Then I'll look at the next person, okay? Next person is someone else and someone else. And I'm gonna look at all this for every single person, like, can I work my way in? Could I get interviewed on this person's podcast? If so, I would submit like, hey, I love your podcast, I just wrote a new book, or I have this new funnel coming out, or I have this new free report that I love to give away. What would it take to be interviewed on your podcast? And you can message, in fact, I would, like, podcast hosts are usually looking for amazing, interesting people to interview. And if you've been testing your material and you've got some good stories and good hooks, they will want you to be on their thing. So contact them and try to work your way in to be on the podcast. Work your way in for them to talk about you on Instagram. Work your way in to have them write a blog post, like whatever those things are, right? But if you can't work your way in, then come back and say, well, can I buy my way in? Can I buy ads on this podcast? Can I buy ads on his Instagram channel? And you're doing one or the other, but the goal is the same on both these. Is you're buying an ad, or you're working your way in, where you're just taking away these hooks you've been testing out. You're like, cool, I tested this at the bar, I did it, the jokes nailed it, they landed. I'm gonna now go and do it on the podcast when I get interviewed, okay? People always, it's funny to me, people will do podcast interviews and like, I don't know what to say, I'm freaked out, I don't know what to do. It's like, if you've been doing if you've gone through this process that we've done, you've been publishing, you have a whole bunch of hooks. And nobody on this podcast ever, even though you're like, I already did that, I told that story on Facebook Live like 3 days ago. It doesn't matter, none of these people are on Facebook Live, they didn't hear you. So go on the podcast and tell that story, and you practiced it, you know it, you wrote a blog post about it, you did whatever, like go and do it, tell it to their audience, and that's the hook you're gonna grab, and it's gonna get people from here back into your funnel, and then you move people through the process. Okay, and so that's the game, you guys. That's traffic. If you look at like what do we do here in ClickFunnels, if you look at like when Russell writes the Traffic Secrets book, what's it going to be about? Like this is the core concepts behind it. Okay, I'm building my Dream 100 list, and then figure out how do I either work my way into each person, or how do I buy my way in, or both, and then I convert that traffic from traffic I either control or I don't control into traffic that I own, and I'm building this list, and this list will keep getting bigger and bigger, and this is how we win this whole internet marketing game. That's how we play. So there it is, you guys. So your assignment for today is to build out your Dream 100 list. It's exciting, it's fun, it's simple, it's easy. Just go figure out the categories you want and just build your dream list. Even if some people are like crazy, like there's no way I'm ever gonna get, whoever, the Pope to be my JV partner, but maybe you would, so just put it down there, it doesn't matter. Just put everyone's name you find in there, and start building out this list right now, and then we'll start going deeper into like, okay, how am I gonna do each of these things individually? That's what we'll be covering over the next 2 days. In fact, tomorrow I'm gonna be going into how to earn your way into some of these traffic sources. The day after that, was going to how to buy your way in, and then that's kind of the game for the rest of this week. So with that said, thanks you guys, and I will see you on tomorrow's training video.